Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at GCNlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set, cocked, locked? Here we go. Your dial set correctly to USA Prepares. We're delighted you're with us in class today. And Andy is engineering the broadcast. In the meantime, we're trying to reach Dr. Norman Shealy, and we're having a little bit of difficulty reaching him. So, in the meantime, Captain John Regan is with us, and Captain John Regan had a couple of questions for Norm Shealy. But while we're waiting for him, John and I decided that... Oh, we do have Norm. Okay. Well, welcome, Dr. Norm Shealy.
Good morning, Vince.
Hey. Good morning, Dr. Shealy. We have Captain John Regan with us. Welcome, Captain John Regan.
Good morning, Vincent and Dr. Shealy.
Hello, John. Good heavens, what's going on?
Oh, boy. Been making some progress. There's some other issues we still need to take care of, but just to catch you and everybody else up to date, Becky and I both have iron and insulin problems, and we've been making progress in both areas. And I have to really thank you, Dr. Shealy, for the prescription. I'm now...
that was a trial in itself, getting it right.
Oh,
but
man.
It's better than no breath at all.
When you work with a blood center, they are very, very picky on their instructions.
Well, I can understand that.
And each one's different. There's some centers that, in addition to a prescription, you have to fill out another form that goes along with it. And there's not a standard for the industry. So it's a learning process.
Well, at least you've gotten it started.
Yes, I've had once a week draws, so that was 4 times in February, which that's a half gallon of blood. So that's a lot of blood loss in a short amount of time. And I'm doing okay. Just sometimes I feel a little bit drained. After the not last week's, but the week before last, I went and got my ferritin level checked again, and it had dropped. Well, I guess I need to back up, which another question. Before doing these draws, I had tried IP6, which is a rice bran product.
No, I like that one, yeah.
Yeah, to try and chelate the iron out. And I was on that for about 3 weeks, and then I had a ferritin test, so I'd have a starting point for where I started at. And my ferritin levels had jumped up to 447.
Wow.
From about 350s. And I don't understand that. My only theory is that the serum ferritin went up because the IP6 might have been drawing some of the iron out of my organ.
Yeah.
And I just wondered if that theory made any sense to you.
Well, yes and no. That is, without having done it several times, we can't be sure. On the other hand, what I would do is wait until you get it down with the IV, with the blood draws, and then add the IP6 and see what happens.
Right. I stopped the IP6 at that point because I just wanted to let the blood draws do their work. And, before I went in this past week, it had dropped under 200. It's like 194, 197, something like that. So where I was expecting to get about 30 or so points a visit, I'm actually getting more like 40 or 50. So after this week's, I'm going to go in for another test, and I would expect at that point I'll probably just need one more time to get down into the healthy range. And
Great.
from there on, it's maintenance, and especially since I don't have the worst genetic form of this, it's possible I might be able to go years before having to get another draw done. Worst case might be maybe once a year. So that side's pretty good. Becky, who can donate blood, she dropped down below 100, which is where the damage starts really occurring. And when she goes back in April, that should get her into the healthy range for iron, for, say, ferritin, because the iron test is something different. I've got a normal iron test, but my ferritin is high.
Right.
So we're great progress on that front. When we got the initial ferritin test done in October, we also had the A1C test done. And I believe mine was 12.8 and Becky's 13.6, which translates roughly into an average blood glucose for me of over 300, and Becky's was getting closer to 400.
Are you taking Jim Nema?
Pardon, what was that?
Are you taking Jim Nema Silvestra?
No, I have not put that in the mix yet.
At some point I would.
Okay.
It's safe. So, as long as you manage your blood sugar, I would take it 3 times a day with food.
We do occasionally monitor our fasting blood glucose. Mine has gotten down to 130 plus or minus a couple. Becky's made slower progress. Hers came down. She was, I believe, in the 270s, and then the last week we took it again, and she was in the 190s. So still not good, but making progress.
Yeah, I would consider Jim Nema and then chromium. You take your chromium?
We've got chromium. I have an additional problem with blood pressure. And in fact, one day it was so bad, it took about 15 minutes of trying and relaxing in between just to get it down low enough where they would take my blood. And
now, are you on anything for that?
I'm not on any medication for that.
Good. Then there are 3 things you need to do. You might as well do all of them. They're totally safe. Nitro Extreme, 2 squirts twice a day. Autogenic training twice a day. If you will send me another email. Oh, by the way, I've changed my email to normshealy85@gmail.com. I am divorcing Bill Gates today forever. I don't want to ever hear Outlook or anything related to Gates again. It's the biggest bunch of nonsense on the internet. I've never had any trouble with it. At any rate, leave me another email. I'll send you a free autogenic training MP3.
So it's normshealy85@gmail?
Yeah, .com, right.
Okay.
And finally, John, you might as well go ahead and are you taking an excellent B complex?
I'm having to do that off and on. I got some nutritional yeast.
Now, get Dr. Shealy's Essentials, Dr. Shealy's Youth Formula. Take 2 Essentials and 4 Youth Formula.
Okay.
And 6,000 units of taurine, milligrams of taurine a day. 2,000 with each meal.
Okay.
If you do these 3 things, your blood pressure will be normal within a week.
Now, when I do the ferritin test, I have to stop. I forget which one of the B vitamins it is for 72 hours.
Okay,
so when I'm going in for that testing, I'm having to go on and off my Bs.
Right, okay, well...
Like I say, within a couple of weeks, I should have the iron taken care of. I won't have to do that testing, and I can concentrate on having all of that 7 days a week then.
Good, okay.
let's see. I'm still having, in fact, my sleep issues bounce back and forth now. For years, before I started working at the electric company, my problem was falling asleep. Once I started working for the electric company, my schedule got really bad because when there's a problem, they don't care about the employee. It's getting power restored to customers, and sometimes there was one point pulled, I think it was about 36 hours straight. Really, one of the tougher jobs I had, even tougher than being in the military. And by the time I was done working for the electric company, I didn't have any problem falling asleep, but I'd wake up in the middle of the night and then have problems getting back to sleep. And that's how it was up until more recent here, especially with the blood draws. Some nights I'll have problems getting to sleep, and I've even cut out caffeine or done like one glass early in the morning. And then other nights it's back to the other one where I wake up in the middle of the night, and I guess we can get to the sleep issue on the other side of the break.
Yeah, Captain John Regan's with us. Dr. Norman Shealy's with us. And, John, when we come back, would you just tell us why you've had these blood draws so that those who are just joining the broadcast understand what this is all about, your iron levels? We'll be right back. Medical Doctor John Regan is joining us, and he's talking about some iron testing that he's had done, and he had some excess iron in his blood. He's going to tell us a little bit about what that test was for and why, and what Dr. Shealy recommended, and then how we got to where we are. John, please. Do we have John Regan?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, now we can hear you, sure.
Okay. The test that needs to be done is the serum ferritin test. The thing about iron in the body, your body needs iron, but too much iron causes damage. Excess iron will damage your mitochondria, and it will also damage internal organs. It will damage the liver.
Especially the liver, yeah.
If it's there high enough, long enough, that's where you can get fatty liver and also even liver cancer. It will damage the pancreas. It will damage, pretty much anything internal in your body. The best studies that I've seen, which have yet to really make it into the mainstream, show that if you have a ferritin level below 80, that you don't have any damage problems. You're good. Between 30 and 60 is even better. Below 20, you do have a problem. You can even be anemic and have too much iron. And just like you can be thin and have diabetes. So you can't just use that as a measure without, that's why you say you have to do the test. Between 80 and 100 on the ferritin is the transition phase. Once you get above 100 is where the damage starts. For a woman, hemochromatosis is considered above 200, and for a man, it's above 300. Becky hit 201. I hit the 350s before that one that said was over 400. Some people have really severe forms, and their levels will be even over 1,000, so high that they do once or twice a week blood draws for over a year to get it back down to a healthy range. The good news for a number of people is you can get around that just by going and donating blood. A lot of people can't do that, though. And if you can't, you have to get a prescription to get it done. And unfortunately, there's no good alternatives, really, other than getting the blood taken. There are some medicines. I've found 3 of them that will chelate the iron, but even the mainstream medical doctors like to use those as a last resort. There's a couple of natural products, curcumin or turmeric, and the IP6 we talked about earlier, that some people have luck with in chelating the iron. There is a hereditary or DNA component to this. There's 2 different gene variants, and since I don't have the bad one, I don't remember the abbreviation for that. Mine is H63D. I have 2 copies of that. That's the minor form, and 6.7% of people that have 2 copies of that have excess ferritin levels, excess iron. If you have the H63D with the other copy or the other type, or you have 2 copies of the other type, that's where you have the potential for the more severe form of hereditary hemochromatosis. There's non-hereditary ways you can get that. You can get it by not taking too much iron. You shouldn't be taking, for a man, you shouldn't be taking iron supplements unless for some reason you really do have too little iron. For a woman that's postmenopausal, you shouldn't be taking iron. You have to watch out for fortified food and even cooking in cast iron cookware.
Okay, we'll be right back. Captain John Regan's talking about iron in the blood, too much iron, and Dr. Norman Shealy's with us, and we're learning what to do if this is a problem for you. We'll be right back. Dr. Norm Shealy's with us, and he has a new email address if you'd like to contact him. It's normshealy85, NORMSHEALY, the number 85 at gmail.com. normshealy85 at gmail.com. Dr. Shealy, do you have some more comments about what Captain John Regan is telling us?
Well, sleep. John, have you tried time-release melatonin?
I do try that. I get some benefit for a few days, but if I stay on it, I tend not to get a benefit.
How much have you taken?
I would have to go grab the bottle to find out.
Okay, well, a urologist friend of mine many years ago actually gave men 25 milligrams a night to treat prostate troubles, etc. So what I would do is get 5 milligram tablets of time release. Don't get regular. Regular is no good. If it's not time release, you're wasting your money. And I would start with 5 milligrams and up it gradually. Anytime you need more, just up it until you get to at least 25. It's worth trying.
Okay. I think they're 5 milligram.
Good. Well, don't go up to 25 all at once, but grow up gradually.
Okay. And during the break, I did send you an email, so you have my email address there.
Good. I'll send you automated training twice a day.
Now, what I've talked about earlier this show is kind of the Reader's Digest condensed version. I was on with Vincent on January 2nd. The whole 2 hours, this is basically what we covered, is the iron and insulin issues. So if you go to my website, thefinancialstateoftheunion.com, go to the news tab and check out my post for January 2nd, you'll have links to a lot of resources, including my affiliate link for walk-in labs. And in most states, there's 5 states that you still have to go to a doctor's office, but 45 states you're good. You can order the test online. You have a choice between Quest Labs and a LabCorp. And I believe all 3 of the tests that I'm talking about, the serum ferritin, the A1C test, and the fasting insulin test, I believe they're all $29 each. So it's not very expensive to get these tests done. Sometimes you have the results as soon as the next day. If you're in healthy ranges, great. If you're not, at least you know you have an issue to start taking care of. If it's on the blood sugar side, good news is there's a lot you can do without having to go to a doctor. The bad news is if it's on the iron side, and this is one of the things I don't have an answer for that case where you're in that grid down preparedness situation. It's because without having the ferritin test and without being able to have blood taken, you're pretty much stuck there. So for me, that's a pretty important test to have now while you still have a working infrastructure. And if you have an issue, you can get it taken care of to where maybe you won't even have to worry about it for years into the future. Also, I wanted to tell you about our weight loss, and I still don't know how much is unexplained and how much is because of our change in diet. But from the last time you saw me at the Get Prepared conference, we have lost quite a bit. I'm down about 75 pounds. Becky's down probably about 50. It's possible by the end of this month that I may even be below 300, which I have not been there this century. So obviously that helps issues as well. I just have to get my body especially better regulated. We had fasting insulin done. Dr. Mercola says that you want to see that between 2 and 3. I've seen other sites just plain recommend below 10. And we can debate as exactly where that should be. Becky's fasting insulin is 17. That's still within the reference range, which goes up to 24. Mine, on the other hand, was 47. So my fasting insulin is quite high. So I've got to really work on whatever it's going to take to get my body out of this insulin resistance mode where my functions start going normal again. And I don't know if you have anything else I can add to the mix to try and get my body in that mode.
Well, the most important thing is gymnema.
Okay.
Mentioned that already.
Dr. Shealy, what does gymnema do for the body?
Well, interestingly, it does several things. Number one, even taking it by mouth, after a while, you lose your craving for sweet. If you want to find out just how good it is, then you open the capsule, put just a few grains of it on your tongue, and you will not be able to taste any sweet for 3 to 4 hours. But by taking it by mouth, 100 milligrams with each meal, it can help control your blood sugar without significant effects other than
Dr. Shealy, does blood sugar relate to higher blood pressure, or does the consumption of sugar and sweets, I'm talking about candy, and sweet things that come in packages, does that drive blood sugar up?
Yes, and
that's what I've noticed. I've noticed
it's
that.
Poison. Sugar is the original fake, false food. It has no nutritional value. In fact, quite the opposite. It is dangerous because it has no vitamins, no minerals, and no fiber.
John Regan and I were chatting over the weekend, and he had a comment about sugar. John, do you want to say it now, what you think sugar should be classified as?
Let me lead up to that. I just finished reading a book a couple of weeks ago. It's called The Case Against Sugar, and I really highly recommend you get that. I knew a lot, but I learned so much more disgusting things by reading that book. And before reading the book, I was of the opinion that we didn't necessarily need to cut out sugar totally. If we went back to the early days of where you had consumption, like 2 to 3, maybe even 5 pounds a year, that it wouldn't be harmful. In the 1990s, America peaked sugar consumption at about 150 pounds per person. It's down a little bit from that, but it's still horrendous. But by the time I got to the end of the book, he talked about this problem in Victorian England, where they started seeing the explosion of diabetes. Sugar consumption at that time was 5 pounds per person. And you know me, I end up having to run numbers on things. So I was wondering, how do we relate 5 pounds to our daily consumption. And I did it this way. Say you have just 1 cup of coffee in the morning, and you put a teaspoon and a half, measuring spoons, not just the teaspoon out of the drawer, into the coffee to sweeten it. In a year's time, that is 5 pounds of sugar. And sugar is in darn near everything. I was, and I'm now understand, I got to look at the ingredients on everything. I went to the store, bought some organic chicken stock, and, decided one day, check it, pull it off the shelf, down on the ingredient list, organic cane sugar.
As if organic is any better than non-organic.
Do you want arsenic or organic arsenic? I mean, it's, organic sugar is still sugar. It's still just as bad. And I think that's one of the reasons processed meat is bad. Sure, you've got nitrates, MSG, other things in processed meat. But, your lunch meat, your hot dogs, your bacon, you're going to have sugar in there, sometimes in more than one form. And I hadn't looked until this morning. I've been buying this uncured turkey bacon, and sure enough, down on the ingredient list is sugar. One of my favorite cooking spices or ingredients is Worcestershire sauce. After the number 1 ingredient, which is distilled white vinegar, number 2 is molasses, and number 3 is high fructose corn syrup. There is so much more work I've got to do to change the way I've been cooking. Basically, I'm going to have to make my own stock, which isn't necessarily that hard. It's just another step that you have to go through in order to get into the healthy eating. And the comment I made to Vincent is that I believe processed sugar should be a Schedule 1 drug.
I don't think it should be that. I think it should be it should be like ayahuasca.
There's no use for it in our bodies. If you want to have some around for preparedness to use for wound care, that or honey, hey, great. But don't put sugar in your body.
Captain John Regan, I want to thank you for telling the class about this. Don't go away, but I just wanted to say that during your discussion about the case against sugar, I just purchased the book on the internet, The Case Against Sugar. $8.37 is what I paid for it, class. So if you want to get it, it's on eBay. Class, Dr. Norman Shealy is with us, medical doctor. If you'd like to contact him, Norm Shealy 85, the number 85 at gmail.com. Norm Shealy, NormShealy, the number 85 at gmail.com. And if you want to go to the website, normshealy.com. Normshealy.com is his website. And you can sign up for the same newsletters that I and all the other instructors have signed up for, absolutely free. And you won't have your email address sold to anyone. It's just for Dr. Shealy to send you information about health and wellness. Captain John Regan, I really appreciate what you're doing and sharing with us your thoughts. And I have a question for both of you. Dr. Shealy first. Dr. Shealy, is there a link between adequate water consumption and closer to normal blood pressure compared to high blood pressure by drinking more water? Is there a relationship there?
If it's not chlorinated and not fluoridated, you should drink, if you weigh 160 pounds, you should drink 80 ounces of water a day.
Okay, so you take your weight, divide it by 2.
Divided by half.
And then that number, apply ounces to that. So 160 pounds divided by 2 is 80, and then we'll just add the word ounces after that. And our engineer said about 10 cups. So, 10 8-ounce cups, yes. And Dr. Shealy, what I have found is that if I don't drink enough water, my blood pressure tends to go higher. If I drink enough water, my blood pressure is pretty darn good.
That's true. It is a warning.
Okay, John Regan, have you found something similar?
I haven't really found anything in that. All I can say is back in 2005, I went on a diet that had eliminated sugar and, grains and all of that. And at the time, my blood pressure was in the 140s over 80s, and within days, it dropped to 110s over 70.
That's what mine is.
Done that this time.
Yeah. Mine's about 110s over 70s, low 70s, when I drink, with no sugar and the right amount of water. Oh, and Allison, which is garlic. Dr. Shealy, do you have any comments on Allison?
Well, garlic or Allison is excellent.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it's good for all kinds of things. I think, among other things, its best benefit is to the immune system. Also helps with cholesterol.
And how do you recommend consuming garlic? Do you recommend it raw? Do you damage it if you cook it? Do you just take it in caplets or capsules or what?
I like it cooked.
Mm-hmm.
I can't eat it raw. It really upsets my intestinal system raw.
Mm-hmm.
If you can eat it raw, it's fine, but it works just as well cooked, I think.
Mm-hmm. And now, if you're going to be audited by the IRS class, make sure you bring some raw garlic with you. Have it a couple days before, have it during, and just make sure that you're really healthy for that audit. And by the way, the more you speak, the less they'll want you to speak. And I think it works great. So garlic, I really like garlic. And the Italian diet seems to encourage garlic. I mean, my parents had it. My grandparents had it. We have it. I don't know if is it an ethnic thing, Dr. Shealy, or...
Well, it is to a large extent. But, actually, for over 40 years, I've raised elephant garlic, which is much larger than your regular garlic.
Right. Elephant garlic. And, we grow it in tubs. We have these, they're called Lick, L-I-C-K, tubs. And what they are is during the winter, we buy these protein tubs. They're 200 pounds apiece. And when the cows are done emptying them out, we scrub them out. We put dirt in them, and we grow things that we like to eat, herbs and such, and elephant garlic on the veranda. Works great. So, just a thought. John Regan, would you like to stay with us?
I have one more question for Dr. Shealy, so I'll hang around.
Great, and I have a question for you about the article that was written about us. Your comments, and I'd love to hear Dr. Shealy's as well. We'll be right back after. Yeah, I've got a response too. We'll be right back after top of the hour news and commercial announcements. This is USA Prepares. Everyone all set? Cocked, locked. Hour number 2 of USA Prepares. Dr. Norman Shealy's with us, medical doctor, and Captain John Regan is with us, both senior USA Prepares instructors. And John had some more questions for Dr. Shealy, and he's been sharing some of his health issues and concerns, and Dr. Shealy is sharing some of his medical advice with our class today. Captain John Regan, please continue.
John, baby?
I don't hear Captain. John, are you there?
Well, I guess he's not.
Maybe he dropped off. Okay. By the way, our engineer, I'm hearing an echo, about a second and a half delayed. If you could fix that. Yeah. Okay, good. Did we lose Captain John Regan? I don't... okay, looks like he's calling back in, Dr. Shealy. The phone screen is lighting up like crazy, so I have a feeling that Captain John Regan is calling back in. Okay, do we have John Regan? John, are you there? Captain John Regan, I don't hear you. Hey, John. Are you there, John?
I think I've been transferred to the wrong line.
There you are.
I'm not John Regan.
Who are you calling for? This is USA Prepares.
I'm trying to learn the frequency.
Okay. While we're waiting for Captain John Regan, Dr. Shealy, so you got a copy of the article in 417 magazine about preparedness, and it was titled Why 417 Land is Mecca for Doomsday Preppers by a guy by the name of Dan Rowe. Now, you and I met Dan Rowe. He interviewed both of us during the 3-month period or so that he was writing this article for 417 magazine. And class 417 stands for our area code, our telephone area code here in the Springfield and surrounding areas of Missouri, including our farm. And it's a pretty big area. So this magazine is like what's happening in 417 land. Oh, okay, we have John Regan back. John, are you there?
Yes, you said my name and the call dropped.
Okay. Well, we didn't do it on purpose. So, John, we started talking about the 417 article, but let's get your question first, and then I'd love to hear Dr. Shealy's response to the article and your response, and then I've got a response, too. So what else did you have for Dr. Shealy?
Well, let me quickly wrap up. If you're just joining us, please listen to hour number 1. We've been talking about problems caused by too much iron and insulin. They both have a lot of the same symptoms and cause similar damage. And unfortunately, they take a long time doing it. So by the time you find out you have a problem, you could be in a very bad shape. In fact, for some people, the first symptom they come up with is death. So the two main tests is the serum ferritin for testing your iron levels, and the A1C is a good test for determining if your blood sugar has gone out of whack, which means you've got an insulin resistance problem. The nice thing about both of those tests is you do not have to fast for them, and it's readily available. So the other question I had, and to lead up to this, because I want to discuss the United States side of this, plus one of the things I'm exploring is there's some retirement options in Central America that I may be able to qualify for with having a retirement income as bad as it is called Social Security. I can't qualify for that for at least the early part for a couple of years yet. But I'm exploring this, and in looking at that, there's some immunizations that are recommended. Nothing was required, and that brought up a general question of immunizations in general. The last time I had a vaccine was a flu shot about 20 years ago. I've had none since then. But whether we're looking at the United States and, especially the good down preparedness mode, or moving to a country in another region where you've got other diseases that are more prevalent, including mosquito-borne, but some of the recommendations they recommend is hepatitis A because of contamination by food, and even rabies because of contact with both domestic and wild animals there. So I wanted to get your thought on, do you recommend any immunizations, and if so, which ones would you recommend?
Well, I don't know about living in one of those tropical countries, and the problem, as I see it, is they carry risks as well as help. I haven't had a flu shot or anything like that in over 40 years, and I haven't had the flu or a cold. So if you live in this country, I do not see, as an adult, taking any immunizations at all, but that is only if you're taking 50,000 units of vitamin D3 a week and a minimum of 100 micrograms of K2 and a couple thousand milligrams of C. Now, in those countries, I would have to look carefully at which of the diseases is most risky, but I wouldn't live there if they paid me to come there. My feeling is our government is evil enough, and I can't trust any other government, including my favorite country in the world, of the United States, Australia. Therefore, I mean, I came close to thinking about it when Obama came in and when he was reelected, but I couldn't find a country that I trusted.
I can understand that, too. What concerns me is the financial situation has been teetering for some time, and the indications are it's going to get worse. The question is how fast, and once that happens, because of all of the liabilities that we have for retirement and health care, those just have to be reneged on. And we don't have the resources we used to have, both in terms of energy and other natural resources, to rebuild the country. You almost have to go to mining asteroids in order to get some of these resources that you would need to rebuild the economy to the levels that would, give you the high lifestyle. So part of my reasoning there is that if you go move to a poor country, there's still going to be a poor country after the collapse. If you're in the United States, it's going to be an interesting transition from being what used to be the wealthiest country in the world. We're now the brokest country in the world, and it won't be long before we have to live like we're the brokest country in the world. So that was
John,
my rationale.
Well, my feeling is if things get that bad, I might as well recycle. But especially if you move to a foreign country, depending upon Social Security payments to keep you alive. So you're even worse off than staying in this country.
So, anyway, that was my other question.
I'm sorry I can't help you. Because
well, John, what was your thought about the article that was written about us, our meetup group? Dr. Shealy was included. He was interviewed. You weren't included in the article, but you certainly did shape the meetups and the expos because you participated in those. And the article was in 417 magazine, the March 1st issue, and it's called Why 417 Land is Mecca for Doomsday Preppers by Dan Rowe. And there's a link, class, if you'd like to read it, just go to usaprepares.com, page number 1, and there's a link to the article. And if it's a long article, but if you'd like to read it, it talks about a number of your instructors, including Dr. Shealy. So, John Regan, what was your take on this article?
It was rather interesting. I recognized most of the names that were in there, and it was, to me, when I was there, and we had the meetups and we had the expos, that was a very special time for me. And unfortunately, we never got beyond that type of activity. And the article talks about some of how things started falling apart a bit. And in fact, one of the books that's on my table to read, I had to get it from England. It's called The Utopia Experiment. And this is a guy that actually managed to put together a prepper group to be ready for the collapse of civilization and how it spectacularly failed. And I guess we'll talk about that more on the other side.
Yeah, I'd like to hear more about your thoughts about this article. I thought it was a H-I-T, piece on preppers, and I'd love to hear Dr. Norman Shealy's response as well. We'll be right back. Dr. Norman Shealy's with us. Captain John Regan's with us. Captain John, you were talking about this article in 417 magazine, your reaction to it. I'd love to hear that, Dr. Shealy's response. And then we've got Sharon on hold, and then I'll give my response. So please continue, Captain John Regan.
Well, as far as a media piece on preparedness, yes, it was a hit piece. I thought it was somewhat objective, though, and can be used for lessons learned. so many of the media pieces out there is to just, paint everybody as a wacko nut job. And, there are valid issues out there, including the financial condition and the trouble we have with our grid that could be taken down either by EMP or a coronal mass injection from the sun. So I was, like I said, I was saddened for how things turned out. I, a little upset on some of the tone, but I think you can go a little bit both ways on the article. There were some parts of the article I thought presented the picture pretty fairly.
Okay. Dr. Shealy, your thoughts?
Well, I especially object to the doomsday in there, and that's the kind of thing that you sense off and on throughout the article. So on a scale of 0 to 10, I give it a 6. To me, the concept of being prepared has been around for thousands of years. It has nothing to do
That's
with
how we got
doomsday.
here.
It has to do with what I call reality. Like, let the field go fallow every 7 years and that kind of thing. And so for the last 46 or 7 years minimum, I've kept a food supply and that kind of thing. So it makes no sense to me to make it sound crazy, and doomsday sounds crazy. Now, if we have doomsday, who cares? It's over. I mean, that's the ultimate. But
let me put Sharon on. Yeah. Okay. And I'll give my comments after Sharon joins us. Sharon, welcome.
Good morning. Actually, I have something kind of unrelated. You there? Hello?
Oh, we're here. We're here.
Yeah, okay, great. I actually had a couple questions that were not terribly related to this. One thing, you mentioned something for blood sugar or gymnine or whatever. How'd you say that, and how is that spelled? Could I ask that? You're talking some kind of gumnia or something.
Dr. Shealy, how do you spell gymnema?
Yeah, how do you spell that?
Gymnema, second word, Sylvestre.
Okay, no wonder. I couldn't get that. My quick question, hopefully, is you've mentioned taking vitamin K2 with vitamin D, but I was wondering, where is the difference between vitamin K and K2? I did look real quick online, and I didn't read it very well because I was in a hurry, but you mentioned that if you take vitamin K and you have the proper bacteria in your gut, it will turn into vitamin K2. Do you just need to take vitamin K2, or can you get vitamin K1? Because it's quite a bit more expensive, K2 is.
But it's better. I strongly prefer K2.
You do, even though it's considerably more money? We're on a tight budget, shall we say.
Well, to me, there's nothing more important than health.
Well, I agree. I mean, you can't get a lot done if you don't have good health. But so you don't think K would work, you just should take K2, is that correct?
Well, if you want optimum immune function, you need D3 and K2.
Right, yeah, I take the D3 all the time, yeah. And I swear by it. In fact, I give it to some of my adult kids because I want to keep them healthy. They won't go buy it. So that's mainly what I wanted to ask you about. I appreciate that. And, yeah. I'll let you guys go back to your conversation.
Hey.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
It's gonna be more like a rant when I come back and talk about the article. Sharon, thank you so much.
Okay, bye-bye.
All right. Dr. Shealy will be back with us, and Captain John Regan, and I'll give you my response, and I'd love to hear what the guys have to say about it. Dr. Norman Shealy's with us, Captain John Regan's with us. And so, class, just to recap, an article was written about some of us, and it was titled, Why 417 Land is Mecca for Doomsday Preppers. And subtitle is, No one can predict the next local or global catastrophe, but these Ozark residents have a hunch, and they're ready to be right. Goes on to talk about a dream that Len Pence had. And it was kind of an apocalyptic type of a dream. And pretty rough. Why it's in this article and in red, in italics, and just to hype the feeling that a lot of us who are preparedness minded are nuts. Okay, so in this article there are images. There's an image of a high tension power line. Why, I don't know. There's an image of a power station. There's an image of Len Pence, who's in his 80s, one of our instructors. There's an image of a guy wearing a camouflage-type mask and dark glasses, so you can't see his face. He's wearing a ski cap, a mask, if you will, covering his face, and dark glasses covering his eyes. And why is that in this article? I don't know, because no one has ever come to an expo looking like that. Then there's a picture of 2 AR-15s. And then there's an image of this guy with a ski cap in his car, and he's got glasses and a beard. No caption for those 3 images. And it seemed to me that if they're writing about preparedness-minded people, they might say, these guys want to have what they need before they need it. These guys service their own vehicles. These guys do some research and they try to find out about well water. They try to learn about gardening. They teach each other about gardening. They teach each other tricks of the trade that they've learned the hard way or they've learned from others. They're more prepared for a storm than other guys and gals might be if a storm comes their way. They know about generators. They know about wiring. They know about how to reduce watts and power consumption. They learn about health and wellness. They're an interesting group of people who are willing to share with each other at no cost things they've learned. Well, the article really wasn't like that. So I got an email from one of our instructors. His name is Alan. Alan was on Doomsday Preppers. I introduced Alan and Franco to Brooklyn Bagwell, who was the casting director of Doomsday Preppers, and Alan and Franco were on Doomsday Preppers in an episode that was about aquaponics. So Alan sent me an email, and so I responded to Alan, and here's the response. I thought, well, I'll just read it. Normally I don't write long emails, but this time I did, because I'm kind of frosted about this article. And it goes on, Alan, just a short note to let you know that none of the crazy sounding discussion came from me. Now, class, what I'm talking about is the interview with Dan Rowe. So I'm saying that none of that stuff in the article that sounds crazy came from me. It came from other people. When it came to guns, I told Dan, that's Dan Rowe, that guns were a minute fraction of what we covered, just so those interested might learn more so they could do further research on their own. I told him that we taught gardening, farming, finance, economics, medicine, food storage, equipment maintenance, etc. Preparedness on all levels. We didn't go out on military maneuvers with camo and face paint. Dan focused on the fringe and made us all look like nuts. And I'll keep saying that on the air. Andrew Colin, now here's a guy that's highlighted in this article. Andrew Colin, he spells his name Andrew with a colon, the one dot over the other. And so that's his name, Andrew Colin. Andrew Colin destroyed the meetups. Janet Randall helped him in the destruction, her self-admission. And those we helped most abandoned us. I thank them for letting me know how they really feel, and I won't waste any more of my time on them. I've never seen anyone wear a camo face mask to my expo nor meetup. Nor did we ever preach violence. We preached just the opposite. Dan did a disservice to preparedness, just as Doomsday Preppers did on TV. Heck, Dan titled the article Doomsday Preppers. And none of the people I know think like that. And who is that jerk who wore the face mask for his picture? The person behind the camera was obviously not a photographer. All the photos in the article were substandard. It was a hit piece, pure and simple in my opinion. I think we should all call 417 Magazine and let them know we're boycotting them and their advertisers, including the ones who have the best hamburgers in Springfield. I just wish that I had such a brilliant idea for an article. Best hamburgers in Springfield, Missouri. What a joke. I remember when senior management at KWTO wanted me to broadcast on that topic years ago. I was called into the front office and told that. And I told them, no, I'm not interested in such trivial pursuits. Just goes to show us what we're up against when it gets serious out there, when we're surrounded by know-nothing bozos. I hope they all enjoyed their ball games, chicken wings, TV, and beer. All the best, Vincent. That's my response to the article. Dr. Shealy, do you have any comments on that?
You're kinder than, not as kind as I was. I was trying to be nice. I think it was written by a flaming fundamentalist, but I don't know. I just didn't think it did justice. And
yeah.
But I've never seen that much in 417. It's just a crummy magazine in general.
Well, seriously, the photographs, your picture's not in it, and neither is mine, and I didn't give them permission to take my picture because I had this feeling they wouldn't let me know, they wouldn't let me read the article before it went to print. So obviously it was going to be negative toward our mission, if you will. And so your picture's not there, my picture's not there, John's picture's not there. John, do you have any comments on what I just read, my response to the article?
I didn't notice some of that. When I went in there, I saw Lynn's photograph at the top, and then I just pretty much, I read so much, unless there's pictures I'm interested in, like, seeing the results of, the floods or the hurricanes or whatnot. I guess I just bypass that and concentrate on the text, so I didn't really see some of that. So,
okay, but you have never, in all the meetups that you've been to, have you ever seen anybody show up in camouflage?
Never.
With their face covered? Never.
Nope.
Have you ever seen anybody at the expo? Either a guest or an exhibitor or a speaker?
No.
No, right? Dr. Shealy, same question. Have you?
No, absolutely. That's what I mean. It's really written by a detractor rather than a neutral.
Mm-hmm.
It's not neutral. It is truly a detractor. In other words, thumb your nose at it.
Yeah, and I think Dan Rowe wanted to come to the farm, and I wouldn't let him. I told him I don't give the media access to my farm. I don't do it. And I had this feeling, I didn't know who he was and where he was coming from, but literally he interviewed me for about 6 hours, both in person and on the telephone. And in the article he talks about me carrying a .45, but I wouldn't show him where. Why should I? Why should I show him? I mean, am I supposed to pull out my .45 and say, is this cool or what? You like this? I mean, why would I do that? I don't know this guy.
Yeah, hidden.
And about the AR-15. Yeah, and the AR-15's in the article. I got to tell you, I can't think of a single time where we brought an AR-15 to the meetup and passed it around and said, hey, is this cool or what? It's not something we did. Now, however, we have talked about the kits and how you can build them and why, you might want to consider learning more about the kits. Yeah, we've done that. But, are we advocating going out and harming people? Absolutely not. Are we advocating self-protection? Yes, we are. But it's not the big piece. The big piece is we just want to be left alone. We want to do what Dr. Shealy does. You raise animals, you raise beefalo, you've got a farm, and you live the farming lifestyle. And when people ask you for help, you give them help. That's kind of what we do. That's who we are. But we are not these nuts. I've never had a meetup where we talked about Bigfoot. When Andrew took over, Andrew started talking about those things. And I got beat up. I got beat up at the meetup because people said, hey, we don't want to talk about UFOs and aliens. Really. So one time one time I mentioned that one of our instructors came out from California, and he heard about this area in Missouri, a couple hours away from our farm, that is allegedly a UFO hotspot. And this instructor's name is Bert Bertonis, who has a good friend. And that friend's name is Jacques Vallée. Jacques Vallée is a ufologist. And Jacques and Bert Bertonis were talking about this hotspot. And Bert wanted to come out here because Bert knows me for, decades. He wanted to come out and, walk around the spot because he was going to visit me. And heck, why not go look? So we went out and looked and we found nothing. And that's what we reported. We reported there's an alleged UFO hotspot. We stomped around there for the day. We didn't find anything. That's what we reported. So I get beat up for believing in UFOs and aliens by just saying that we just went to see if there was any truth there. And that's what investigative reporters do. They go to see if there's any truth there. So anyway, the meetup group didn't want to talk about that. We only talked about it once. And then, after I left, that's the kind of stuff they talked about. They switched to weird stuff that we didn't do. We come back, we'll talk a little bit more about this article. Captain John Regan's with us, Dr. Norman Shealy. We'll be right back. So, class, during our expos, I allowed private gun sales. And what that means is if someone had some rifles, and pistols, and shotguns that they owned, that they wanted to sell privately, one person to another without paperwork, which is absolutely perfectly legal in Missouri if you are a resident of Missouri and the seller is a resident of Missouri and no one is a felon. It is absolutely legal. It's called the gun show loophole. So it's actually just a meeting place where someone who has some guns that he owns or she owns and wants to sell them, and then someone wants to buy them. So, for example, if I brought 3 shotguns and put them on a table, and I own them, and someone comes up to me and says, "Hey, that's a nice shotgun. How much is it?" And I give them a price. And they go, "Wow, can I look at it?" "Yep, sure, go ahead." And they say, "I'd like to buy it. May I buy it?" And I go, "Well, are you from Missouri?" "Yep." "Are you a felon?" "Nope." "Okay, good. You can buy it because I'm not a felon and I'm from Missouri and I own these, and this is not a straw purchase. You're buying it for yourself. It's all above board." So I had that at the expo, and there was one guy who refused to put the tie wraps on the actions so that the actions were unsecured, and I didn't think it was safe. I told him, our sons told him, and the guy just refused to do it. I threw him out. I threw him out of the expo for early in the expo, because he just refused to follow our rules for safety. And there's another guy who wanted to come to our expo, and he was selling fear. And it was like, if you don't buy my stuff, my bucket of stuff, you're going to die. Because there's going to be a planetary collision, or the space junk's going to come and hit us, or a meteorite, and we're all going to die. But, if you buy my bucket of stuff for over $100, you're going to be fine. I wouldn't let him come either. He wanted 6 tables. So we did not allow the selling of fear, and we really wanted to protect our guests and our exhibitors. So that's kind of some of the things that have happened. But Dr. Shealy, in this article, it talks about, and it starts out anyway, one Monday in February 2017, Dr. Shealy brings in Maz Sajadi. Am I saying that right? Maz Sajadi?
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
Sajadi.
Okay. He is a Minnesota spiritual healer, and he treated Janet Randall earlier that day. Janet Randall beat Dr. Shealy and Maz to the meetup and fawned all over the treatment's effectiveness, calling it magic and devilish, words that didn't set well with Andrew Colin. After Moss and Dr. Shealy left, Andrew Colin condemned their witchcraft and announced a vote to the group. And then it says, "Should Dr. Shealy be banned from our meetings?" Janet Randall remembers asking him, saying, "I was afraid to look around, afraid to look whose hands were up." Lewis says most of the room didn't vote, but of those who did, 3 voted for Dr. Shealy's ouster and 1 voted against. Finelli's status was never voted on. Current members say he's welcome to come back, But Finelli's impression was they made their choice about him, too. And it goes on to say, how do I tell Dr. Norman Shealy that he was voted out of the meetup? Finelli asks rhetorically. So I told him on the air. I said, Dr. Shealy, they had a vote, and you were voted to be barred from the meeting. And he kind of laughed. And I said, don't get all excited. They banned me, too. He holds no grudges. He says that he's actually glad it happened. Now he knows how his students really felt. So that's what they said about you and me, Dr. Shealy. And did you do anything devilish? Did you do anything on the dark side? Did you do anything?
It was about spiritual healing, which has been a part of classic religion for thousands of years. But this guy's a flaming fundamentalist. The flaming fundamentalists have no fun. All they do is hate.
Yeah. So you got kind of beat up in this article as well, and it seemed like Dr. Shealy was doing some things that he didn't do, and I was so angry with the meetup group because one guy out of the entire group stood up for you, and who was that?
Well,
that was our dentist friend.
Gonads, let's face it.
Yeah. Dr. Howard Shane stood up for you. He stood up for you.
Yeah.
The rest.
Yeah.
The rest were
a
gutless.
couple of castrados.
John Regan, any 10-second thoughts?
I think we're just out of time for today, and I'll catch up with you on Friday.
Yeah, see you on Friday. Dr. Norm Shealy, thank you so much. John Regan, thank you. John, I'll see you Friday.